Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca and grab all that great Calgary swag. So, obviously, bit of a different look if you are watching this and also used to my content. A bit of a different angle coming at you guys today. Just a weird day, a bad day to have all these technical issues because we have a ton to cover and now I don't have a lot of time to cover it in. So let's get right into it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm glad we've been able to do this a little bit more consistently. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein, wherever you would have a social media account. If you are watching this, hit that subscribe button, hit like, leave a comment, and let me know what you think of the show and the channel. And if you're listening to this, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening. So let's dive right in. It was a blockbuster trade that has been rumored for weeks, months, years even. Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to the Miami Heat. Does this change the title picture in the East? Does it make Miami significantly better? Sure. Where does Milwaukee go? Is there drama in Boston? Of course there's drama in Boston. A lot to cover from this one, so let's break it down. So the trade, Giannis on his way to the to the Miami Heat in exchange, along with Bobby Portis Jr., don't want to forget about him because he's going to get minutes the way this Miami team's set up right now. In exchange, it is this coming from Shams. Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez, you have Yakasionis, the 13th overall pick in 2026, that's tonight. Unprotected picks in 2031 and 33, a pick swap in the first round in 2030, and a second in 2033. So those 2033 picks, the players who are going to be drafted with those, between around 12 and 13 years old right now. So that's the lengths that we're going to on this Milwaukee side. But obviously the big one is Giannis to Miami, so let's break it down. I saw some people saying, oh, Giannis isn't even on a better team. He's on a better team now. Like, there's no question about it. It's an interesting team, and it's one that certainly has a Pat Riley identity, right? Like, you look at what this team is going to be now. Giannis at the 4, Bam at the 5. In the backcourt, it'll be Davion Mitchell running point as they're set up right now. You have Norm Powell probably coming back in free agency. It was just a bit of a clash with him and Hero. That's now gone, obviously. So Powell going to be running things at the 2, and Wiggins will be at the 3. So you have certainly a defensive identity. If you're going to have any spacing at all and have this not look like a 2000s game where the power forward and the center are just on either block, then you are going to need one of Giannis or Bam to be a little bit more consistent from distance than they have been. I would imagine Giannis is just going to run a lot of stuff from up top and try to create things that way. But when he's bullying his way down, is Bam going to be out of the way? These are like Eric Spoelstra is a mastermind. And so he's going to be able to piece all of these things together. And it's nice to be able to piece things together when you literally have Giannis. The question marks with this are obvious. You have given up basically every bit of depth that you have. You have given up some substantial parts of your future, and you're doing so for a guy who hasn't been able to stay healthy in a few seasons now. So, like, where does this go wrong? You don't have to really go digging for it all that much, right? Like, you know where this would go terribly. Is Giannis plays 45 games, and this team is not able to find the diamonds in the rough that they've been able to before, and it just goes south very, very quickly. Where it goes right, I think is also pretty easy to see. If Giannis stays healthy, maybe the hot weather in South Beach helps to fix anything that was ailing him. Maybe all of a sudden he is back to being the Greek freak. And if that's the case, this dude is still a top 3-4 player in the NBA. Combine that with Bam, who, put up 83 points in a game this year. Very, very good there. Wiggins and Powell have been role players that have been able to do that at the highest level and help teams to championships before. So you can really see where this thing goes very, very well for them. Does it make them better than the Knicks? I don't think so. Does it make them better than the Celtics? Boston's going to need to fix a couple of things this offseason, including the broken heart of Jaylen Brown. But I think there is a pretty clear path for Boston to be able to get better than Miami is. I think it's a coin toss between Cleveland and Detroit, and I think they're better than Toronto, as, again, currently set up here. So it doesn't make them a title contender necessarily. Or it doesn't make them the title contender, I guess, but it puts them in contention anyway here. They're obviously going to have to get creative now. They don't have their draft pick tonight, so they're going to have to figure out a way to build out this depth with substantially less salary cap space than they had before, which is going to be difficult in this NBA. So like this is the move. It's a big move, but it is one that certainly upgrades this basketball team. On the Milwaukee side, obviously it's emotional. It's the end of an era. It is a guy that I'm not going to say took a chance on, but like I don't even think it was a lottery pick, was he? If you want, very late. Middle of the first round draft pick. Dude ends up growing into an absolute freak and has the work ethic to really back all of that up and turns into a super duper star in the way Milwaukee's never had before, or hasn't had, I guess, since Kareem. So it's been a minute. All due respect to, Ray Allen and all them, but Michael Red shout out. But like he was different than any star that they had in Milwaukee. And so for it to end now has to be emotional, right? Like you want to see your guy in your jersey for the rest of the way. But it was obvious that this relationship had soured, and Giannis was trying to play it off in a way that kept his hero status in Milwaukee with, I didn't outright demand a trade. I would never want to leave Milwaukee. It's my agent who's trying to drag me away. And so it gets a little awkward a little bit quickly, right? So that's, like I said, it was just weird. It was just a weird situation. It's now done. And I get like you don't have that thing, that big like, okay, we got this at least. But I actually do like how they come away here. Like Tyler Hero, I would set the under on 40 games that he plays with Milwaukee. I would suggest that they're probably going to look to make a move here to adjust now and continue on with a rebuild. They're in a tricky spot because they don't have their picks. Getting 13 tonight helps. I do believe they do have their first round pick this season, but it starts to fall off because of Holiday and Lillard trades. Like they just don't have a lot right now of their own draft picks. So just completely going in the tank doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them. But like, where's a piece? And Giannis is something. Same with Jaquez. Like, these are all players who have been drafted in the first round recently. Now, a lot of them were also guys who were getting some playing time in Miami, so you can't necessarily say, well, maybe we can find something in them in 30 minutes a night. But I think the hope to turn this into a bit more of a home run is obviously like one of where Jaquez, Giannis really starts to develop into a super duper-ish star. And then you get something a little bit bigger for Tyler Hero, and you cultivate an Oklahoma City Thunder-esque thing out of this. So it's interesting they get a bunch of players. I mean, they get a bunch of everything, right? They get a bunch of draft picks, a bunch of players, and are pushing now forward with that. So I do like this for Milwaukee. I see some people complaining like they didn't get the Jaylen Brown part of it. Like that Brown is better than any player that Miami sends their way. So in theory, you are then able to get a better return if you're trying to flip him again for something to like Atlanta or something along those lines to try to get some picks back out of that. But I think for the situation they were in, to be able to get all of this out of Miami is really impactful. The other thing that I think is quite interesting, and look, Milwaukee is hoping that this doesn't last 7 years before they get it figured out. But best case scenario here for Miami is that like Ware turns into a thing. They can flip Turner and Hero into some draft picks that help them in the short to intermediate term, I guess. And then by the time, like 31, that's 5 years from now, Giannis is going to be 36? So now, look, Miami may have all of a sudden traded for Cooper Flag and all 4 guys who were drafted in the first round here tonight. Like, assuming Miami's going to be bad is never a smart thing to do because they're always going to be hanging around. But maybe you're banking on that and hoping that because of the new lottery system, and we'll see what happens in 31 by the time we get there, but because of that, maybe Miami being just kind of a mid-team would actually help you out a little bit. So I do think it's interesting that the majority of the picks are coming from a time where Giannis isn't going... We're presuming Giannis isn't going to be as effective or be as good, and now you can recoup some of those assets there. And so the hope would be you can figure this out in the next 2 to 3 years, and then those draft picks could be adding to what is already a very good situation, and then you're trying to turn into the Oklahoma City Thunder again. So it's Miami comes out of this better. Obviously, they get Giannis, and Milwaukee, a little bit of it is still like hypothetical things. Getting the draft pick tonight, I think, is really good for them. But I still think if we're looking for a winner in this trade, it is the Miami Heat. But I do think Milwaukee does pretty well coming out of this. The ripple effects from this, like I said, I think the Knicks are still number one in the East. I would still probably put Boston at number two. But now there's an awkward conversation there because Jaylen Brown, it's all out there that Jaylen Brown was a big part of this and that Boston was aggressively pursuing this move. And so now you have Brown already in his feelings a little bit. You could tell from the Twitch stream that he did at the end of the season, he's already in his feelings a little bit about not being the guy after having a season of being the guy. And now you are aggressively trying to trade him to Milwaukee so they could flip you to God knows where. I do sometimes think players can get a little bit in their heads about this stuff. That one's a pretty easy line to draw to see where Jaylen Brown would be a little pissed about how this all played out. So I think it's going to be interesting now. What does Boston do? Do they just make him like whatever Milwaukee was going to flip Brown for? Do they just try to do that? Get a bunch of pieces out of an Atlanta or whoever, right? Toronto, whoever, and try to make it work that way? Or can you get the Jays to get back on the same page, hope that Derek White is more regular season Derek White than what he was in the playoffs, and be able to build up a contender already? So it sucks because for Boston because they don't get the guy, and now Brown is upset. And honestly, I could see a world where Tatum's upset. It's like, you want me to play second fiddle to that dude now? Like, you've won a title more recently with me than that guy's won over there. So what are we doing here? So there's a lot of damage control that needs to be done on a Boston team that needed to find some ways to improve anyway. You can kind of see it. It's a little hidden by Labubu in the back, but I have the Kawhi Leonard picture from when he was a Raptor. You can probably tell from the Jays hat, Raptor fan, or at least I'm from Canada, so, it's easy to presume. Just from a Raptor standpoint, Toronto has always been tied to Giannis. A lot of that was because of Masai Ujiri. Obviously, he's not there anymore. And there was nothing, I don't think, that Toronto could have put together here to match all of those things, right? Like, I would assume that Milwaukee would be a bit more excited about this package than one of Barrett plus Shed plus Walter and a bunch of picks. Like these guys are, I think, a little bit more proven here. And I don't think Toronto's in that spot to do it. It would have been an awkward fit. Like, I get you would put Giannis at the 5 with Barnes at the 4 and Ingram at the 3. So you would have a very interestingly sized basketball club to kind of work with. But this was never going to be it for Toronto. They are going to they have to address the center situation out there. Maybe now Milwaukee doing this, if you can attach a couple of things to Pirtle, try to get Turner out of there, because my never-ending quest to get Miles Turner to the Raptors continues now. But the Raptors have their own things to figure out. They weren't going to be competitive in this. They weren't even going to top Boston's offer of Jaylen Brown and picks. So it doesn't make sense that Toronto would have been involved in this. But what do you guys think? Like, winners, losers from this trade? Is there an angle at this that I'm missing? Let me know in the comments and we can talk about it there. Also, just a reminder that you can subscribe to Couch Potato Diary in podcast form. Just search out Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. And while you're listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and leave a review so that others can find the fun stuff that we have here at Couch Potato Diary. I'm old enough to remember when the Julius Randle 3-team trade was the biggest trade of yesterday. A wild day in the NBA got kind of kicked off with a 3-team deal involving the Nets, the Bulls, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think we can declare a winner in the Julius Randle, Karl Anthony Towns trade now. An interesting swap of players and picks and ideas and, most importantly, money. Let's break down this interesting 3-team trade from the association. So yes, the Minnesota Timberwolves clearing up some cap space and then filling it immediately in a 3-team trade with Chicago and Brooklyn. Here are the details. To Brooklyn is Julius Randle and the 28th overall pick in tonight's draft. Nick Claxton goes to Chicago. and to Minnesota is the 33rd overall pick. And again, a significant amount of cap space. So that's if you're looking for the why in this whole thing for Minnesota, and they're the best team of this, so let's focus on them first. Losing Randall does take a bit of a bite out of this team, but you still have enough there that can fill in around him now. It's Naz Reid going to be in the starting lineup. You can still go Gobert with Reid and Anthony Edwards. It was just a matter of freeing up the cap space to sign. Sorry, I'm very choked up about it, apparently. It was just about keeping the cap space to sign Dosunmu to that contract extension. He's the point guard that they have been missing for a while now, and this is the move now that allows them to do it. So if you are just looking at this from just in a vacuum, and did they get enough for Julius Randle? I would say no. Moving Julius Randle so you can move down 5 spots in the draft, that feels not great from a basketballing standpoint, but the bigger picture is what Minnesota is doing here right now with Dosunmu. So cap space wise, again, all this stuff is so all over the place right now with the money going out, money going in. Minnesota, let's just presume they're kind of up against it a little bit. This is kind of their team now with this group. I do think Dosunmu does help them out in a way to just get them into their offense a little bit better. It's the point guard they've been missing for a while. Having him with a full season now with Edwards and Reid and these guys to get things rolling, I do think is going to be beneficial to this basketball club and help put them in a pretty good spot. But again, looking at this, they're locked in with this group now. Is it better than the Spurs? I don't think so. I know so. It's not. Is it better than Oklahoma City? I don't believe it is. Are they better than the Denver Nuggets? Right now, I would say yes. Denver has an interesting offseason ahead. So they're still a top 3 team, I would say, in the Western Conference right now, but they have quite a bit of room to make up. So you are hoping for quite a bit of development from Dosunmu. Anthony Edwards just turns into a world beater, and not that he isn't close to that already, but it does kind of lock them in with this group now, it feels like. And I don't know how much upward mobility there is in any of these guys. But with Randall, the only reason there was upward mobility is because you didn't know what you were getting from him on a nightly basis, especially when it came to playoff time. So I can understand it for Minnesota, but it does kind of feel like they're a little locked into this. As far as look, again, the salary cap in the NBA, I just kind of wait for Bobby Marks to tweet stuff out. It's a little bit tricky to kind of figure out. So I'm sure Minnesota has some moves that they could make. We'll see, DiVincenzo, that one's a year, right? So he's not coming back. They probably have more on the bench than I'm giving them credit for. And again, I still think it's a good team. And I do still think this was a necessary move. Again, if they don't make this move, it's not like they can, just go sign LeBron. There isn't that is out there for them. They are just hoping for some internal growth here, and this I think really locks it in. As far as the other pieces are concerned here, Brooklyn, this is an interesting move for them as they get the 28th pick in the draft. They move Claxton out and they bring Randall in. Now, I don't know if they're going to look at flipping Randall or they want a New York Knicks adjacent star to try to get any kind of buzz back in that building, because everyone talking about how, what's so special about this Knicks trophy is that it's not like the Yankees and the Mets. It's not like the Giants and the Jets. It's not like the Islanders and the Rangers. The Knicks are New York's team. They unified the 5 boroughs, and Brooklyn's over here just wait, what? We had KD and 5 draft. What? So maybe they're just trying to hey, remember when this guy was a Knick? Come on down and watch the Brooklyn Nets. I think it could be it's an interesting experiment having him run out there with the 5 guards that they drafted last year and try to put up some scoring there. Him with MPJ and a couple of these guards, maybe there's a something there to be a little frisky in East Division or an Eastern Conference. Sorry, that you have to assume is getting a little bit better, right? With Milwaukee was bad last year anyway, so they're not going to be on the come up now for a bit, but it's not like that is one that was a significant drop. You have the Wizards are getting better now. I don't love the Trae Young signing, but the Wizards are going to be getting better. Miami obviously got better. There's a lot better happening right now in the East. I don't know if Brooklyn breaks through into that conversation with a Julius Randle trade. So maybe this is just bringing in another piece that they can then flip to try to get something else going. But it's another piece that it is this a guy we're building around, or is this a piece that we're moving on from? And they also had Porter, but like they get it for Claxton, who I like actually. Like I don't mind Claxton. Admittedly, I didn't watch a ton of Brooklyn Nets games this year, so I don't know if it's an odd fit or what. But this feels like Randall is a better player than Claxton, but not by a substantial margin. So it's maybe a bit of a lateral move, but you get the 28th pick as well, and maybe there is, I guess, a bit more, like I said before, upward mobility in Randall's game that you can get out of it than maybe Claxton could. As far as the Bulls are concerned, they're the one that has the kind of steadiest cap situation, so was able to pull it up from Bobby Marks on Twitter. I want to be very clear. Again, I was just talking about how the Nets, it's going to be tough in a improving Eastern Conference. That's the same for the Bulls here. Like, it's still the same Eastern Conference. But I kind of like a little bit what's happening here. Like, Buzelis, I think, is a thing. Giddey can be a starting point guard on a very good basketball team. He's not like best player on a title team or anything like that, but he can be a starting guard on a good basketball team. Okoro's kind of a thing. Dillingham and Williams are both ones that I'm just going to hold on to. Like, I think I'm still going to be convinced that there's something there. Essenge as well. I think there might be maybe something there, but like they have a lot of, if you squint, you can see it here. They're going to get a very good player in the draft tonight at 4. I don't think this team's as far away as it felt this time last year. I think they have made some pretty smart moves to bring in a few of these pieces. You are missing that star, and you're hoping that the guy that you get that falls to you at 4 is that star. And then Dillingham reaches his potential, Claxton kind of balls out a little bit, and Buzelis continues his progression here. Like there's a little bit of something happening here in Chicago right now. It is more of a something than they have had in a while, at least. You can say that. But it's not championship worthy or anything like that. They still have a long way to go, but I do like this move. Like they basically just bring on Claxton. And so again, 4 and 15 in the draft tonight, that is going to help them out, I think, quite a bit. Obviously, like 4 is going to be a very good player, whoever they end up getting. 15, it's a pretty deep draft, so you're able to help yourself out there as well. And bringing in Claxton, kind of solidifying that center spot, I think it's a good move for the Chicago Bulls. Am I being too optimistic on Chicago? I feel like I kind of am. Like make no mistake, they're going to be bad next year, but there's at least something kind of building with Chicago right now. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Am I being too nice to Chicago? Am I being too hard on Randall? And where's Minnesota's ceiling? Like, where can Minnesota get better to get into the Spurs Thunder conversation? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep chatting about it there. Also, share this with your basketball fan friends. I love the community we've built here at Couch Potato Diary, but we're looking to do more of it. So send this off to your basketball fan friends, and we can keep the conversations going here on whether it be in the comments on YouTube or over on social media, where you can find me at Primetime Klein. Buried in a lot of the basketball headlines over the last little bit is the contract that Trae Young has signed with the Washington Wizards. They're going to have the first overall pick in the draft tonight, so let's break this one down here pretty quick. So Trae Young signs a 4-year, $212 million deal with the Washington Wizards, and I don't like it. Now, Washington's in a tough spot, but they kind of put themselves in this, right? Like, they made the moves, and I kind of liked it at the time. Like, try to get better. Try to find the market inefficiency out there. And right now, that is overpriced stars, apparently, with the second apron and all of that. But, like, bring in some guys who can kind of supplement with your young players and work it out that way. And they go out and get Trae Young. I'm not the biggest Trae Young guy. They go out and get AD. When he's healthy, I'm a big AD guy. The problem is now locking yourself in with this contract here for Trae Young. And like you look at Atlanta and you see how they got significantly better the second that Trae Young left. Like, not even by trade, just he got hurt, and all of a sudden the rest of that offense came together in a real effective way. Now the thing is with Washington, like Jalen Johnson's not walking through that door, right? Like, they're going to get a good player tonight. A lot of signs pointing to Debansa, but we'll see if it is one of the other guys in that top 4 that everyone's kind of gushing about. But like, they're going to get a good player out of that. If AD is healthy, like, that's a good player, and they've seen some progression. Like, I think there's something there with Koulibaly and a couple of their other young players. So there's some stuff going on here. And so it's one thing to lock yourself into these big contracts when it feels kind of hopeless. This is the first time in a bit Washington hasn't felt totally hopeless. And then you lock yourself into this Trae Young contract, and I think it kind of takes a little bit of the excitement away for me. He is going to have to significantly alter how he views himself on this basketball team, how he views his standing in the league, and what he's going to be able to do. But again, if he does a lot of that, then he's not worth the $212 million that you just signed him to. So it is the one thing that I think is really killer in the NBA, especially now with how restrictive a lot of the salary cap rules are, is going out and giving big money contracts to not big money players. And I get Trae Young had that great series with the Knicks to the point where they were still chanting F Trae Young while they're celebrating a title. That's how in their heads he got. But he hasn't been that dude for a bit, and he has to get to like that exact ceiling for this to be even close to being worth it. So I feel like Washington was moving in a right direction. And this, I think, at least pauses that. But again, for them, they can't really get out of it because they traded for Young. He had the player option. Obviously, he was going to turn that down and try to turn it into a little bit more financial stability for himself. He has done that now, but Washington couldn't just be like, okay, yeah, you declined your option. We'll see you later. They made that move to bring this guy in to get that buzz, to get that improvement on this basketball team. So they were kind of forced to make this signing. So I don't like it all the way around. I'm not a Trae Young guy. I don't think he is point guard on a championship team right now. I don't see that with him. Maybe he turns it around with this group, but only time will tell. What do you guys think? Am I being too hard on Trae Young? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep the conversation going down there. While you're watching this here on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. We just talked about leaving a thought in the comments, and hit that subscribe button as well. We're trying to grow this thing, wanting to be able to do this a little bit more consistently, and would really appreciate all the support from you guys in that sense. We shift now to the NHL. It had been rumored for a bit, investigations were done, there was nothing in the Oilers' way of signing Mike Babcock. Except for logic and reasoning, but that's never stopped them before. The Edmonton Oilers, I think, are making a huge mistake with their head coach. Let's talk about it. I just can't imagine watching how sports have played out over the last 12 months, let's just say. And you look at, in all of these sports, you look at Major League Baseball with the Toronto Blue Jays and the unity that they had and the closeness, even to the point where the jokes are the power of friendship and how it is just this whole unit that was able to get more out of every one of the sum of the parts to be able to build this team to get within a game of winning that thing right there. Then you look at the NBA and you see how the Knicks built their championship team with unity and structure and everyone buying in for the greater good of this team. And then you look, I can hear what you're saying. Okay, well, those are other sports. Yes. And then you look at the NHL and you see the Carolina Hurricanes. Is there a superstar on that team? I really like Aho. Stankoven played like a superstar this year, but there's not a superstar on that team. But they had a foundation, they had a culture, and they had a coach who did the best that he could to get the most out of each and every one of those guys. There was a complete and total buy-in, and they were able to knock down the Vegas Golden Knights and win the Stanley Cup. I can't imagine watching all of that, being Edmonton, knowing the desperation around this season, and thinking, okay, culture, not important. We're going to bring Mike Babcock in. We are going to bring in a guy who has been, to be blunt, who's been an asshole in every stop that he has been, to the point where like he is forcing players to retire basically because of mental health issues. He has been just absolutely isolating rookies and causing problems on those teams, and all the while not winning games. I don't understand this at all. From Edmonton's standpoint. I guess I shouldn't say that. I understand what Edmonton is doing because it's what Edmonton has done for a long time. It's, okay, we got the superstar here. We need to get a proven coach who can go out and do it. Now, to be fair, they haven't done that the last couple. So there was always going to be a veteran coming in here, right? The issue you have is that they've done this a couple of times. Okay, we need to go out and get a culture setter. So let's bring Milan Lucic in to play with Connor McDavid. Oh, that didn't work. We have to trade him for James Neal. Oh, that didn't work either. Okay, whatever. Let's bring in Pat Quinn to help out with Taylor Hall and all of these guys. Let's do this, that, and the other thing. this is it is a desperation move, and it is one from a handbook that has been outdated for a really long time. I I get that you need to bring in a guy that the Stars agree with, right? Because that was the big thing with Knobloch, is they were pissed that Knobloch wasn't running systems that were going to make them be successful, competitive, whatever it is. And so now you run it by him. And well, Babcock, aside from the Marner thing, he's never really had a problem with the superstars. The problem has been with those depth pieces that he treats like absolute dog shit. Listen to Commodore talk about it. Listen to the stories of Franzen and all of these guys. And like, who are the ones that he's picking on? Babcock knows. I don't think he's a great coach, and we'll get to that part in a second here. But the dude's not a complete idiot. He knows how to insulate himself, and that is by getting the respect and getting the support of the star players. And so he's got McDavid, he's got Draisaitl, but it's the rest of them who he views that as just lesser than, that he can just treat however he wants, which is exactly 100% the opposite of what the Oilers need right now. Edmonton is going to have to maximize some guys who maybe look less than on their roster. Aside from this most recent series where he got hurt, the issue hasn't been getting the most out of McDavid or even Draisaitl, right? Like, when those guys are healthy, they have given you 110% of what you could possibly expect. The issue is you need to get the absolute most out of the Podkolzins and the Fredericks and the other guys throughout the lineup. And while that has happened with some, Kapanen was fantastic this last playoff. Same thing with Podkolzin. It hasn't been enough. And then you have the goalie situation in the defense. The point I'm getting at here is you need to have this team and everyone on it basically playing to their hockey DB page in order for them to get to where they need to get to this season, and that is winning a championship. And this is a guy who has proven that he is not the dude to get the most out of those depth players. And so, look, even if you are okay with everything that he did in all of the stops along the way, with the taking the rookies' phones, with making Marner rank all of the players in terms of effort, and then exposing that list to the rest of the team, the bullying of Franzen to the point where he couldn't play anymore. Even if you want to overlook all of that, this is a guy who hasn't won a playoff series in a really long time. And we talked about it on Calgary radio out here. And so immediately once I say Calgary radio, I know there's going to be some who just like, oh, it's a Calgary bias, whatever. Look, I'm thrilled y'all are doing this because it's funny content for us. But we talked about this a little bit before with Mike Babcock, and the common thing that was coming up was, well, how's he supposed to do that with the rosters that he was having? Well, okay, so the only way he can win is if he gets one of the greatest goalie performances in the history of hockey that leads him to Game 7 of the Cup final when he loses with the Anaheim Ducks, when he gets a super team in the Detroit Red Wings and gets blow-away goaltending performances from Dominik Hasek and helps ride that wave toward a championship, or when he gets one of the greatest hockey teams ever assembled in Hockey Canada. Okay, neat. But if you're going to point at, like, well, what else did he have the rest of that way? I will grant you the back end of the Detroit stuff, where it was Legwand and all of those guys coming in. But still, I do think there was a little bit more juice left to squeeze out of that one. Got a lot out of Datsuk, got a lot out of Zetterberg, got a lot out of the Stars, but the depth pieces weren't there helping. And then in Toronto, like, again, talk about what we have just seen. What have we just been talking about with the Leafs? How these guys couldn't step up in those big moments and didn't get those big goals when they needed to. And Marner finally gets out of that, goes to Vegas, and turns into a superstar until games 5-6 of the Stanley Cup final. But turns into the player that a lot of people thought he could be. The first one who didn't get that out of these guys was Babcock. He was there with Matthews, Tavares, and Marner, and Nylander. He was there during some pretty brutal losses for this team. So, to be perfectly frank, spare me with he just didn't have the rosters to do what he could have done with this group, or with the other teams that he controlled and that he was the coach of. Like, okay, he's not going to have that here. Like, Edmonton, yes, McDavid is phenomenal and the most talented hockey player that's ever existed. And Draisaitl, very close as well. But this isn't a good roster. Like, make no mistake about it. Outside of that, like Hyman, getting him at $5 million is a steal, and that's fantastic. But even he, a bit of a drop off there. No one is talking about it as much, but Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, a bit of a drop off there. Yes, Kapanen has stepped up. Yes, Podkolzin has stepped up. But like on the blue line, Darnell Nurse is trying to get out of town. And while he is not a $9.5 or $9.25 million defenseman like his contract would state, dude's still a top four defenseman, and this move would leave them with like 2.5 top four defensemen right now. So if you want to tell me that Babcock didn't have the roster to be successful, that's fine. I guess we can listen. I think you're wrong, but I'll at least listen to that argument. But then you have to admit that he ain't going to have it in Edmonton unless some magical trade falls into their lap 4 times and they can build out an actual quality full-on NHL roster. So I think this is a mistake. I think it is a mistake that is absolutely born out of an immense amount of desperation and pressure, and that is when some teams thrive and some don't. And I think we are seeing right now the opposite side of that. Now, look, I've been wrong on these things before. And again, like I talked about this with some other stuff, like where this goes right and where this goes wrong are both very obvious, right? Like where this goes right is Babcock is actually this master tactician that everyone thinks he was from 16 years ago and is able to get not only the most out of McDavid and Draisaitl, but those alongside them, and is able to get everyone pulling the rope in the right direction, and off they go to a Stanley Cup championship. And Mike Babcock is hoisting it and bringing a title back to Canada for the first time in 34 years. Where this goes wrong is he doesn't even make it to training camp because the dude can't help himself. So, like, it's a gigantic swing. And it underscores the pressure that's in Edmonton right now. I get that McDavid has a 2-year contract, and everyone's loving to point out that those guys have signed extensions in Edmonton while other star players are leaving their places. Talk to me in 365 days. Because if the Oilers aren't hoisting the championship this time next year, then when it comes to draft week, we will be talking about trade destinations for Connor McDavid. That there is no doubt about it in my mind. So this is, I've said it a couple of times. I don't think any team is under as much pressure to win in one season than Edmonton is for this year. That goes for all sports, and it kind of goes for forever. Like, there is so much pressure on these guys to do it this year, and that leads to desperation moves here, like Mike Babcock. So it's obvious where I come down on this conversation. Where are you guys at? Am I being too hard? I'm probably being too hard. Am I being too harsh on this, or am I not being harsh enough? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep that conversation rolling down there. Probably an awkward time to bring this up for some of you, but we do have a tip jar here with Couch Potato Diary. If you want to support the content that we're making here, I would really appreciate it. It's linked, if you're listening in podcast form, it's in the podcast description. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the description of the video. Whether you're watching just the Babcock video or the whole episode, it is there. I would really appreciate the support. Certainly not required. This isn't a subscription or anything like that. It would just be a bit of support, but obviously, like, if you just hit that subscribe button, it's enough. Or even just spending your time listening to me rant on about old washed coaches is, it means the world to me. So thank you guys so much for all the support, whether it be financial or just with your time and your eyes and ears. So that's going to do it for Couch Potato Diary. Not the episode I wanted. We had a lot of technical issues, but you know what? I'm kind of digging how this is looking. We might stick with something along these lines going forward. But anyway, thank you guys so much for putting up with all this today. My name is Peter Klein. You can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein. Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. You've seen it pop up. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. Grab that great Calgary swag. Right beside me, we've got that Stampede Wrestling shirt. I think we still have a couple of those, but either way, if you don't, let me know that you want them, and we can try to figure that out as we go along here. But yeah, seaofdead403.ca. Rep this city. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, what you liked, what you didn't like about the episode, and some other stuff you'd like to see us cover down the line. We can all chat about it there. If you're listening in podcast form, remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are tuning in. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Enjoy the NBA draft tonight, and we'll talk to all of you guys later. In terms of my schedule, I'm on Sportsnet 960 The Fan today at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to be on Flow College Baseball tonight. It is the Okotoks Dogs against the Brooks Bombers. I'll have the call with Conrad Wood coming up at 7 o'clock. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day, and talk to you all later. I am out.